Tonight on Reporting Scotland, a boost of up to 2,500 jobs as Barclays Bank announces plans to create a new campus in Glasgow. The first of a long-awaited fleet of electric trains takes to the track with a promise it'll cut journey times between Glasgow and Edinburgh. With the dry spell continuing, residents in Fife become the latest to be urged to use water wisely. After finishing the Open at Carnoustie as the leading amateur, 19-year-old Sam Locke decides to go professional.
I just think for me personally it's the right decision. I've always wanted to turn pro and compete with the best players in the world on the biggest stage, and this week's kind of accelerated my decision.
And later in the programme, an eye in the sky. Aberdeen becomes the first Scottish football club to use drone technology to help them train. Good evening. Up to 2,500 jobs are to be created by Barclays Bank at a major new office campus on the banks of the Clyde in Glasgow. The project will cost around £300 million and is being described as transformational for the city. Here's our business and economy editor, Douglas Fraser.
At one time, the worst of slums, warehouses and the wharves that made Glasgow a global trading power. Today, growth in Tradeston isn't the kind that's wanted. Neglected buildings, derelict land. But within 3 years, this. Barclays already employs 2,500 staff in Scotland. They'll move to this new campus and up to 2,500 more will be recruited. A big vote of confidence in the workforce here. Along with one in India and one near New York, the Glasgow campus will be a global hub for Barclays. It's the skills development in offices, colleges, universities on the north side of the river that have been a big draw for big recruiters in Glasgow. And it's now the Squiggly Bridge, as it's locally known, that is pulling people across the river to the big opportunities to develop this neglected part of the south side.
Look, I think we'll do 2,500 very easily. It's not about replacing people from other sites. It's about insourcing of roles that today we have with consulting companies. At Barclays, we believe the work is better done by our own employees because it's economically the better way to do it. It also means that the intellectual property stays inside the company, and it also helps you a great deal from a security perspective as well.
The first 3 buildings are along the front, using the facade of that older building there. So
with nearly £13 million of public money, the government can look into a future with at least 42% of the new jobs defined as higher value, earning more than £35,000. And at least 340 jobs will be for those facing disadvantage.
For this part of the city and the city generally, often what we've seen in the past is that big initial investments in regeneration sites do operate as a magnet. Now, it doesn't happen automatically. The city, Scottish Enterprise, have got to work hard to attract investment, but there's no doubt having an anchor company like this here is potentially transformational.
Amid economic uncertainty, this boost reflects positive experience of already working with Scottish finance.
Well, Douglas joins me now. And Douglas, presumably there was a lot of competition for this. What won it for Glasgow?
I think the key element seems to have been skills. The depth, the breadth of skills that you've got in central Scotland, a big pool for recruiting from. Barclays knows it well. It's been working with it for a long time, and it clearly wants lots more of the same. Linked to that, universities and colleges, which produce all sorts of high-level skills. We sometimes take that for granted in Scotland, but it's a world-class resource that's attractive to investors. The third element is it's cheaper to operate in Scotland. For office space for the finance sector, that's about 40% cheaper than it would be in London, where, of course, Barclays has a lot of people. And what Barclays says is that it likes the way the public sector works together in Scotland, because this is a complex piece of land. It took a long time to be able to get all the different bits, the ownership of it, together. That may be one reason why it's been undeveloped for so long. And the council, Scottish Enterprise, the developer, were able to get together and to make things happen, not just for 5,000 Barclays jobs, but space also for another 2,000 and housing involved as well.
Now, this is good news, but But the financial services industry is constantly evolving. How secure are these jobs?
Yeah, it may be a bit premature to be warning about the jobs before they've even been recruited, but there is a serious point here that many thousands of jobs in finance and other professional services like accountancy are vulnerable to replacement by machines, by artificial intelligence. And one of the things that the technology teams at this Barclays campus will be working on is precisely that, working on that sort of advance. The pace for that is picking up. Scotland's very well placed to do well with fintech, financial technology. It's got the technology skills, it's got the finance, it's well placed to put them together. But there's fierce competition to get ahead of this revolution in banking. Yes, a lot of workers are vulnerable to those changes that lie ahead. So while this is, yes, clearly a very big vote of confidence which may boost confidence for other investors, let's hope so, it's also wise to start planning now for the next big thing.
Thank you very much, Douglas. Well, not so good news for Glasgow now. The city has failed to make it to the shortlist for Channel 4's new national headquarters. But it remains in the running to become one of two creative hubs for the channel. The national HQ will now be selected from Birmingham, Greater Manchester or Leeds. Bristol, Cardiff and Glasgow are under consideration for the creative hubs. The final decision is due to be announced in October. ScotRail says the first of its new electric trains will start running between Glasgow and Edinburgh tomorrow. And over the coming months, 70 of the Class 385s will be rolled out across the Central Belt. But the introduction of the trains was delayed by problems with the design of their windscreens. Katie Hunter reports.
Edging into Glasgow's Queen Street station, ScotRail bosses claim this class of train will trigger the transformation of Scotland's railway. Passengers are being promised faster journeys between the country's two biggest cities.
We should have the first 42-minute journey time between Edinburgh and Glasgow in December of this year, and then once we've got the entire fleet in operation, which will be early next year, then we can timetable all the Edinburgh-Glasgow services to 42 minutes.
So middle of next year, all of them 42 minutes?
With a fair wind, yes.
The next stop for this service will be Edinburgh-Waverley.
This is the driver's view from the Hitachi Class 385. These trains are electric, lighter and greener than their diesel counterparts. This train can accelerate faster than any other train in Scotland, and on longer stretches of this line between Glasgow and Edinburgh, it'll travel at 100 miles an hour. 70 of the 385s will be operational by next year. That should mean an extra 100,000 seats on trains every weekday and better reliability. Many passengers say there's room for improvement on ScotRail's services.
Recently there's been that many delays, I would say, during the hot weather, during the cold weather.
It's actually okay. Compared to some of the travel I do in the south of England, it's considerably better.
It's quite difficult to sort of judge at the moment. It's kind of all over the place.
Really?
So what you find is that there's a lot of cancellations, a lot of delays.
These trains were built by Hitachi in County Durham. They were due to be rolled out last year, but problems with the design of the driver's window caused delays. Testing is now complete, and the company's confident in its technology.
Got fantastic Japanese engineering excellence built into the train. It has over 10,000 sensors, so it allows our engineering teams to understand what's happening with the train at all times and ahead of when problems occur. So actually, we're very strong and very confident about the reliability of this train.
ScotRail says the benefits of the new electric trains will extend beyond the Central Belt, because existing diesel trains will be moved elsewhere. The Scottish Government says passengers can expect a better service than of late.
Well, I recognise that there has been a period of disruption, and naturally when there's been the infrastructure upgrade, the electrification of the route, the station enhancements, the level of investment is fantastic, but that of course has led to some disruption. But it will be worth the wait, and the fantastic new trains I think will be a great addition to Scotland's railways.
Whether these trains live up to their billing will be for passengers to decide. Katie Hunter, reporting Scotland.
North Sea oil workers on 3 platforms have gone on strike in a dispute over pay and conditions. Members of the Unite union working on the Alwyn, Dunbar and Elgin installations, which are operated by Total, are taking part in the action. The dispute centres around proposals to change to a 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off rota. It's the first in a series of planned stoppages. Protesters calling for the release of a Dumbarton man arrested in the Punjab gathered outside the Indian consulate in Edinburgh. Jagtar Singh Johal has been held since November, and his supporters say he has been tortured by the authorities. The 31-year-old, who is Sikh, is one of 10 men accused of being involved in the murder of a Hindu nationalist leader. More than 1,300 tonnes of cargo, including fuel oil, are to be removed from a cargo ship which has been aground since last Wednesday on the Pentland Skerries in Caithness. The Coast Guard says the MV Priscilla, which is carrying fertiliser, wasn't damaged, but the removal is a precautionary measure ahead of attempts to refloat it. Scottish Water is urging customers across Fife to use water wisely as a result of the continuing dry weather. The area is supplied by 2 reservoirs at Glendevin and Glenfarg, where water levels are lower than normal for the time of year. It's the latest region of Scotland to face appeals for water conservation, as Andrew Anderson reports.
This is Glenfarg Reservoir. It's one of 2 that supply most of the water to the people of Fife. That's a population of some 370,000. But as you can probably see, water levels are low at the moment. They're also low at the nearby Glendevin Reservoir. So Scottish Water is taking steps to ensure that the supply is maintained. It's pumping water into here from the nearby River Erne, and it's also moving water from here to the Glendevin Reservoir to ensure that supplies are maintained there. But given that it's been so dry and that water levels are low, it's asking people in Fife to use water wisely. If they do so, Scottish Water says there should be enough to go round.
We have no plans at the moment to introduce any water restrictions. We believe that with the help of our customers right across Scotland, but specifically in Fife at the moment, that we can achieve the water reductions that we need to achieve to make sure that there's plenty of water for everyone.
So in order to conserve supplies, Scottish Water are asking people to heed the following advice. They're asking them to take short showers rather than taking a bath. They're asking them to switch off the tap when they're brushing their teeth. And they're asking people not to use hose pipes in the garden or for washing the car, but to use buckets of water or watering cans instead. Similar advice has already been issued to other parts of the country where it's a very similar picture. That includes Arran, the north and northeast of Scotland, and the Western Isles. We're on track for the driest 6-month period in Scotland since 1984, and Scottish Water says that what we need now is a sustained period of heavy rainfall to bring water levels back to normal.
We'll have the weather forecast at the end of the programme. Now, Brexit may have dominated business at Westminster for many months, but today MPs turned their attentions to another union, that of the UK. But inevitably, the shadow of Brexit loomed large, as our Westminster correspondent David Porter reports.
You don't have to go very far here to see where most sympathies lie. Westminster proudly displays its support for the United Kingdom, with the Union flag never far away. But Brexit has added a new dimension to what's always been a complex relationship, with concerns about what one will mean for the other. Today the Prime Minister took her cabinet to Gateshead and made her Brexit arguments to a wider audience.
We're going into negotiation. We're making sure that we're prepared for no deal, and government is stepping up its preparations for no deal because it only makes sense to be prepared for all contingencies. But I'm working to get a deal that Parliament will support because they'll see that it's a good deal for the UK.
In my view, no deal as an outcome is simply one that is not acceptable and one that nobody should be prepared to countenance, because as we see every day now, the risks of that to the way all of us live our lives are too great to contemplate. So, we must have every option on the table.
At Westminster, before they leave for the summer break, a chance for MPs to make their feelings known.
Well, if the Conservatives have their way and go down the route of a no-deal hard Brexit, it would mean that the SNP would have all the excuses they require to agitate for another second independence referendum. So you can conclude from that the Conservatives are as big a threat to the Union as the SNP.
We now come to the general debate on strengthening the Union.
In the Commons itself, strident arguments on both sides.
A no-deal Brexit is now likely. For Scotland, that could mean conditions akin to a state of emergency, with protect and survive type leaflets being given to families and businesses. How does that help to strengthen our union?
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, it's not my union, it is the entire country's union, and it is something we should be proud of.
Tomorrow, the focus will move a few hundred yards from one part of Westminster to another, and from the politicians to the lawyers. The UK and Scottish governments will oppose each other here at the UK's highest court as they trade arguments over whether Holyrood or Westminster should make Brexit law. David Porter, reporting Scotland, Westminster.
Well, let's join our political correspondent, Glenn Campbell, now, who's at Holyrood. Glenn, how significant is this Supreme Court hearing tomorrow?
Oh, this is a big moment in the short history of devolution. It's the first time that the UK government has asked the UK Supreme Court to decide whether or not this place has extended beyond its own powers in passing legislation. It's effectively asking the judges to decide whether or not the law that this place has passed should be struck down. And whichever way that decision goes, it's likely to intensify the power struggles that exist between Holyrood and Westminster over Brexit.
And on Brexit specifically, strong feelings about the prospect of no deal.
That's right, and it's often said by some of those who advocate Brexit that no deal is better than a bad deal. The First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, says that nobody should be seriously contemplating a no-deal scenario because of the economic damage that might come with that. The Scottish Secretary, David Mundell, acknowledges that potential damage, but in his view, a no-deal would be better than a deal with the EU that might lead to the breakup of the UK, and that's what he thinks would happen under the EU's current proposals to resolve the Northern Ireland border issue, creating a special arrangement for Northern Ireland. He's not willing to go down that route, and instead, in common with other UK government ministers, he wants the EU to change its position and to take seriously the Chequers plan that the Prime Minister has put forward. On one other aspect today, he was asked about the potential for extending the negotiation period beyond 2 years if a deal cannot be reached by October. And while the Prime Minister has previously ruled that out, he said it was too early to say whether that question should be asked.
Thank you very much, Glenn Campbell at Holyrood for us there. It's 7:15. A reminder now of tonight's main story. A boost of up to 2,500 jobs as Barclays Bank announces plans to create a new campus in Glasgow. And still to come, a bird's eye view, the first Scottish football club to use drone technology to help them improve their training sessions. An arrest warrant against a former Catalan politician living in Scotland has been formally withdrawn. Professor Clara Ponseti, an academic at St Andrews University, had been fighting extradition to Spain. Madrid had sought her return on charges of violent rebellion and misappropriation of public funds in connection with Catalonia's controversial independence referendum. Gillian Sharp reports.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Greetings for supporters outside the court. This has been a long road. The authorities in Madrid say last year's independence vote was illegal under Spain's constitution, and they'd wanted Professor Ponseti and others to face charges in connection with that. Handing herself in at a Scottish police station, she was arrested in March. On Thursday, it emerged that Spain was withdrawing the warrants. Today, the formal part of the process in Scotland. After months of wrangling, it took the sheriff just a few minutes to tell Clara Ponseti that she was being formally discharged from a European arrest warrant under which Spain had sought her extradition. Leaving court today, her lawyer claims the warrants were politically motivated, and this is a humiliation for Spain.
The European arrest warrant was never meant to be used as a tool of political repression, and we would ask for both the Scottish and UK government to raise such abuse with the European Union. The arrest warrant accused Clara of orchestrating violence at over 2,000 polling booths, yet Spain was unable to specify a single act of violence or incitement attributable to Clara.
The future may now look brighter for Professor Ponseti, but her legal team say she's still a political exile and they remain on standby in case fresh warrants are issued. Gillian Sharp reporting Scotland, Edinburgh Sheriff Court.
To golf now, and less than 24 hours after 19-year-old Sam Locke had a weekend to remember. After finishing as the leading amateur at the Open in Carnoustie, he's decided to turn professional. The teenager was the only Scottish player to make the cut and play the last 2 rounds of the tournament. Jane Lewis reports.
Pretty cool. It's got his name on the back. It's got all your score as well.
The medal that says he's at the top of the amateur game, but not for much longer.
Now Sam Locke on the final hole. Get in there, there we are.
After holding his own on the Carnoustie links, Locke has decided it's time to turn professional.
I just think for me personally it's the right decision. I've always wanted to turn pro and compete with the best players in the world on the biggest stage, and this week's kind of accelerated my decision. I've always loved playing the game and competing, and I just love the feeling of, you know, winning, and so I can't wait to get going. It'll be good fun.
The Open was a bit of a family affair for the Lockes. Dad Andrew, a professional golfer himself, took on the role of caddy.
Yes, very, very emotional. Very nervous. I think I was more nervous than Sam going onto that first tee on Thursday, and just going round that golf course with him and trying to help him along. It was just an amazing experience.
Well, a day, a championship, and certainly a walk here to remember for Sam Locke.
For me, there was too many highlights to pick out one really, but you know, I suppose the walk down 18 on the last day is something very special. It's the best walk in golf, and you never forget it.
The leading amateur and winner of the silver medal, Sam Locke.
In winning the silver medal, Locke is in good company. Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy and Justin Rose among those who've also won it. And Dad believes his son has what it takes to continue to follow in their footsteps.
To see him in the Open, probably the biggest tournament in the world, to handle himself on that stage shows me that he's ready.
So ready for the professional game and hopefully more silverware. Jane Lewis, reporting Scotland.
Well, some football news for you now. And Celtic will face AEK Athens in the next round of Champions League qualifying if they see off Norwegian side Rosenborg. The draw for the Europa League was also made today, and if Aberdeen progress past Burnley, they'll take on Başakşehir of Istanbul. Rangers will play either Maribor of Slovenia or Georgian side Çaykur if they come through against Croatians Osijek. Albanian side Lecce or Molde of Norway await the winners of Hibs against Asterias Tripolis. And they said East Fife Forfar was a difficult one. Now, Aberdeen has become the first football club in Scotland to use drones in training sessions. It's claimed the technology, which will be used throughout the season, will provide the manager and the coaches with a unique view of the players' performance. Rachel Bell reports.
Taking training to a whole new level. The Dons are using drone technology as part of preparations ahead of Thursday's Europa League qualifier against Burnley. From 70 metres in the air, it feeds live pictures directly to the club's analysis software on the ground.
Normally we film the training side on so that after the game the coaches can then review the training as soon as the session's finished. But with the drone technology, it means we can get a real kind of eyes down, top view of the kind of patterns of play and runs that the players are making, and it's just a kind of view that we couldn't get previously.
This is the first time a Scottish club has used commercial drones to enhance first team training. Dons manager Derek McInnes sees it as a welcome addition.
Players are they're honest, you know, they want to be as best they can be as well. So sometimes, you know, when it's easier to show and discuss when you actually can see the images in front of you, and I think that will definitely help us.
Any concerns about the drones bashing into any of your players? More injuries perhaps?
No, hardly got any players as it is, we'll be alright.
Today's session didn't quite go exactly to plan, with the drone falling from the sky and crashing onto the pitch. No one was injured.
Safety is paramount. We always make sure that all the risk assessments have been done beforehand, so it's all fine.
The club say the technology will be used in training throughout the season. They'll be hoping the eye in the sky will give them the edge ahead of Thursday's big game. Rachel Bell, reporting Scotland's Aberdeen.
I'm injured. Was it a tackle? No, it was a drone. Now, a heat wave in the south, not so much here, Christopher.
Not so much here, and to understand why, we need to look to the jet stream. Thank you, Jackie. Good evening. Yes, the jet stream once again influencing conditions. There it is, this fast-moving ribbon of wind way up in the atmosphere, and you can see it's quite close to us, delivering weather systems, weather fronts, cloud and rain. Meanwhile, south of the border, they're getting their weather from the near continent, which is why they've got so much heat. But we're going to have a little bit of warmth, but more likely a fair amount of cloud and some rain as that jet stream delivers weather fronts and weather systems our way. Today was fairly cloudy for many, some showery outbreaks of rain at the moment moving through parts of the central lowlands, but actually where the cloud did break, we saw 25 degrees through parts of Aberdeenshire, and one of our weather watchers managed to capture that, some lovely blue skies there coming through. Now, through the course of this evening and overnight, that wet weather we're watching at the moment continues to edge eastwards before clearing, and then most areas becoming dry with a mixture of cloud and clear skies. And a fresher night compared with last night, around 10 to 15 Celsius. It's still quite humid in the far south. To start Tuesday, it's rather cloudy, a bit grey, but it will brighten up with some sunshine coming through by the afternoon. With it, the chance of a few showers across parts of the south and southeast, mainly through parts of Dumfriesshire in towards South Lanarkshire, over towards the borders, the Lothians as well. But for many, it's a dry and increasingly sunny afternoon. Temperatures 20, 21 Celsius. Chance of a few showers up towards parts of Tayside, Aberdeenshire as well, and indeed through the Western Isles, but elsewhere reasonably dry. And in the sunshine with light to moderate southwesterly winds, feeling quite pleasant. No heat wave, but not too bad, 19 to 20 degrees. Rest of the afternoon into the evening, little in the way of change. Still a few showers around, particularly in the far northwest. Elsewhere, largely dry. And then it's midweek, and through Wednesday and indeed Thursday, it is mostly dry. There'll be a fair amount of sunshine around, and then the chance of some rain come late Thursday, overnight to Friday. So here's those 2 days in detail. Wednesday, mostly dry, cloudy start, but sunny by the afternoon. Always a chance of a few showers in towards the far northwest, and temperatures 20 to 22 Celsius. Thursday, there's that rain out in the Atlantic, starting to edge its way in, but probably not coming our way until after dark. For most of Thursday, it's dry and will drag up some of that warmth from down south. Temperatures 24, 25 degrees through the central belt, and then the rain just starting to edge in and moving east come Thursday night. That's the forecast for now.
Thank you very much, Christopher. And now a reminder of tonight's main news. And we stay with the weather. It's been the hottest day of the year so far in much of England, with that amber heat wave health alert issued. And Barclays Bank is to create up to 2,500 jobs at a major new office campus on the banks of the River Clyde in Glasgow. And that's Reporting Scotland. I will be back with the late bulletin at 10:30. Join me for that if you can. But from all of us, for now, good evening.